And there's actually a item on the ballot today that is asking the voters of all of Fulton County if we're willing to allow that property to be annexed into a city. What a lot of people don't know is that back probably in the 60s, I might have my date a little bit off, there was legislation that was adopted that identified that area as the Fulton Industrial District, that it couldn't be annexed into a city. And the reason that was because at one time that area was the largest concentration of industrial space east of the Mississippi River. And with Fulton County having their own school system, that was a very lucrative place for tax dollars to be collected in that industrial corridor. And so the leadership at that time took that path and it was adopted. So we're going through this process of making sure that the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and then at that point we'll see where it ends up going. So hopefully we'll get some direction out of that.
We are taping this show on Election Day, so as you're listening to it on this first Saturday after the election, so in case you're wondering.
Yeah, that is right. So I'm glad you corrected me, but hopefully we will know here shortly.
We will know definitely by the time this show airs. We will have an outcome.
Right.
And tell me, Select Fulton is an economic development organization for Fulton County. It was formed in 2016, combining the Development Authority of Fulton County with the Fulton County Economic Development Division. They offer, Select Fulton thereby offers a comprehensive suite of services and improved customer service. If you'd like to embellish on that.
That really came about by the leadership of Fulton County, the Board of Commissioners and the County Manager's Office. We collectively, on behalf of the county, got the Carl Vinson Institute at the University of Georgia to do a study as to how this ought to come together. And the recommendation they had was that it needs to be housed under one roof. And so the Board of Commissioners and the county manager came to my board back in 2016, and we entered into an MOU agreement with the county to manage that process. And it's really bringing those groups together, including we now have workforce. And so really what we have is with the 15 cities, can work collaboratively with those cities when a project maybe comes in. We work a lot with the state, and we kind of work and try to help and bring those opportunities to the different cities, or they could go directly to the city. But the other piece is from an incentive standpoint and from a workforce standpoint. If we don't have a trained and qualified workforce, these opportunities, as quick as they come, they could leave. Mm-hmm. So it's really working very well, and we're really excited about it. So the Select Fulton is the initiative part of the county's economic development program.
48.5%, almost half of the population, adult population of Fulton County, has a college degree or more. 1 out of every 5 almost has a postgraduate degree. So speaking of workforce development, we do have an extremely well-educated workforce in the county.
Yes, we do. But we also have a lot of opportunities, and as we move more into technology, we're seeing retraining that must happen to make sure that we're filling these jobs.
And we certainly have the resources for that with all the higher institutions of higher education that we
Correct.
have in the Fulton County, just in Fulton County alone.
Right. We're very fortunate to have that.
We have, I know you graduated from Georgia State.
Well, we got Georgia State, Georgia Tech, the Atlanta University Complex, Emory University, and we do stretch all the way up to Athens. So if you count that, because they do have facilities here in the metro area, we have a very robust educational community.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Gulch. Last night, it was decided late, and if you're hearing this on Saturday, that it's been approved.
Right.
And we're going to talk a little bit about its impact on the city, so stay tuned. Be right back. Welcome back. We're sitting here with Al Nash, who is the Executive Director of Select Fulton, the economic development organization for the county of Fulton County, 1 million population, 15 incorporated cities. And I always hope everybody understands their function as articulately and clearly, because it's a very important function that they provide. And they are about to do a new research project in partnership with Kennesaw State. And the purpose of that is to, determine consumer attitudes on the county, or what is it?
Well, I think it's part of an annual survey that the county's doing and just seeing how we measure. Our county manager and our county commission are very laser focused on building a first-class operation. And so customer service is very important. Mm-hmm. And so this is part of that survey that annually, what do our citizens, what do our stakeholders, what areas of county government are they really interested in? I mean, they're interested in a variety of things if you have certain things, but finding those areas that are highly. And for the last couple of years, economic development is rated very high. And so the county's really starting to really focus on that. We're not here to think that we want to go out and brand the county as around the world, because we probably don't have enough money, because people think of our area as Atlanta or the ATL. And so, but our job is with the 15 cities is to respect their independence. We got 15 great cities, but one great opportunity. And so we're here to kind of help shore those things where we can. Mm-hmm. And there are certain services that cities rely on us, the county do, of course, the judicial system and human services and that type of thing. But we are working in that. Last year, the county helped bring together sort of the first transportation special local option sales tax. And it was really defined by each city determining what projects were important to them. But at the end of the day, those projects have to tie together. So what we think is there's some parallels to how economic development ought to work. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, we're not choosing where people go; they're choosing where they go, mm-hmm. and they have options. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the options that are their needs don't match up with certain products. At the end of the day, real estate drives a lot of the things. So it's an exciting time. We're in a great time. We got some great partners. And we work very closely with the state, our friends at Metro Chamber, our friends at Georgia Power, friends at Georgia EMC, and friends with electric cities. Power companies are very important parts of this. And so it's and then, of course, we've got the professional community, realtors, as you well know, being one, and site selectors and consultants. And so at the end of the day, it's about bringing those resources together.
Mm-hmm. One thing we ought to probably point out is that Fulton County does work with Gwinnett County and Cherokee and Forsyth and all the other counties in the metro area, and bringing an economic development to the metro area. Well, you bring an
interesting point up, and I'll share with you. Just recently, we participated in a kind of a regional workforce issue deal, and it was really working with Cobb County, our friends in South Fulton, and in Douglas County. At the end of the day, employers, they don't care necessarily where you live, as long as you provide them services and it's a fit. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of us get caught up in, well, this is our city or our county, but at the end of the day, as you know, especially I think you're living at North Fulton area, you ride down, let's say Mansell Road, one side of the road's Roswell, one side's Alpharetta, but then you move down the road, it's just the opposite. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that we see about regionalism is very important. Mm-hmm. And so I'm excited about that. I can tell you that over the last 2 or 3 years, where we were 5 or 6 years ago, and regional cooperation is there today. And I think that is important. All boats tend to rise when things work together. Because you come from out of state or out of the area, you don't know about all of that, and that's why it's very important.
Well, we promise you we'll talk about the Gulch. It was just announced last night that the City Council has agreed to move forward, and what's going to be the economic impact on that, Al?
Well, first, let me say that I have not had any direct involvement. We've been following it. There's been a lot of conversation around it. I am encouraged about what I read this morning. I know we're taping on Saturday, but what happened, I think that at the end they've got a very good working plan. This is a unique opportunity. Being an Atlanta native and telling a little of my age, I remember when that property was where the train station was, the Atlanta where the trains came in, and it's basically, they call it the Gulch. It's basically a parking lot, but it's got train tracks running on it. To get that piece developed, you almost have to build a platform over 40-something acres because the train tracks are very active. Mm-hmm. And if you remember the history of Atlanta, we are a terminus where trains and people and freight and all that gets moved. And I think that what I understand is that the developers and others involved have worked very closely with trying to achieve what the community wants and needs, but that job would not get done without working together because it is such a massive opportunity. And today, the city, the county, and school systems are not collecting hardly any taxes off of that. And so what this will do is help get us there where we will see a tremendous return. And if what I'm reading is correct, that I believe there's two sides to whatever you want to read, but I really believe that the city is not really expending any money that they don't have. These are all new opportunities, and there's no big risk to the city other than an upscale opportunity.
I always look at, I lived in New York City and worked on Wall Street for many years, and before I moved here and grew up in Washington, went up there right out of college, and I used to commute into the World Trade Center, in the basement of the World Trade Center. I watched the building. I literally watched the World Trade Center go up from my apartment window in Staten Island. And so I commuted from the tubes in Newark into the basement of the World Trade Center.
Right.
And what they did to that is not much dissimilar to what we're doing with the Gulch, right?
Yeah, right. I think that's my knowledge of that project is, that would be very similar to it. And so I think it's a great way of bridging downtown. We have the government center, state capitol, city hall, and then we've got this area that's
no man's land.
And then we've got the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We have the new State Farm Arena. We have a lot of viable area there. And this is really kind of bringing that together. And as you know, being in real estate runs in cycles. And if you miss this cycle, you don't know when that next opportunity is going to come. So I'm excited about it. And I commend all the people that worked on it. And hopefully everybody that was on the other side will come back, and hopefully we can all see this as the right move, which I really believe that it is.
Don't you think it's going to transform the walkability aspect of downtown Atlanta?
Most definitely. Downtown is a whole different energy. I mean, especially Georgia State and their 40,000 plus students there, it's amazing. And when school's out, you can tell the difference. But it's going to really make the walkability.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back. We're talking with Al Nash of Select Fulton, the economic development arm of the county, Fulton County. We're talking about the Gulch. And by the way, if you missed any of the show, it's on my website, atlantacommunityprofiles.com. But we talked about the city finally agreeing to go forward with the Gulch development. And one thing that Atlanta has not had is enough of, in my opinion, having lived in a lot of cities around the country, is a walkability aspect. I lived in Pittsburgh and Denver. My son lives in Denver. Grew up in Washington, D.C., lived in New York for many years. Mm-hmm. But now we're going to have a beautiful walkability with the Gulch development, I think.
Oh, yeah. I think the Gulch is again, is a little bit of this patch, filling in the pieces there. I think that one of the biggest things that we're going to see down the road that is now starting to pay dividends is the Beltline, and indirectly this connects into the to the Beltline. I mean, there's some long range plans to do that, and then what we're seeing even in the suburban areas of our county and the Atlanta region, we're starting to see cities starting to adapt to walkability. We're even seeing discussions at the airport, the Aerotropolis, and the job they're doing out there is talking about how to make this connectivity. Mm-hmm. And so I was just in a meeting recently regarding the new redevelopment of North Point Mall, which is up in Alpharetta. A lot of people don't realize that mall is 30 years old. And part of their concept is really to build and connect to the Alpharetta Greenway, which connects to the Roswell pathway, which connects to the Cobb County pathway. That eventually, I think the plan is to even get you to the Silver Comet. Mm-hmm. And so
on to Birmingham.
Yeah. So there are this walkability is becoming a huge play, not only in lifestyle, what people are looking for. So I'm encouraged, but the Gulch, coming back to your question, tying that in to Olympic Park, to tying it into the Beltline eventually by paths and that type of thing is going to be really critical and for the future.
We don't know about the Amazon deal, but we know that Seattle is a very walkable city too, as is Portland and up in those cities up in the Northwest. And I've walked most of the streets in both of those cities myself. I love walking around and a city, and we're going to finally have that, and I think it's phenomenally wonderful.
Yeah. Well, you come down 400 and you see the pathway going up through there and what they're trying to do, and a lot of people said, "Oh, it never happened," but we're starting to see the piece of it. And if I'm not mistaken, I think even the widening of Georgia 400 up through the North Fulton area is some way to take that to allow the connectivity on up. So it's not going to be inconceivable. You could ride your bike from Sandy Springs to Buckhead.
Or to Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah, or Birmingham, right, right.
So, Al, what's some of the successes? You've had a lot of successes in bringing businesses to the area. And I
want to tip my hat. This week, the governor announced that Georgia, for the 6th year in a row, is the #1 state to do business in by Site Selection Magazine. Mm-hmm. And this is the first time that a state has ever held the thing for 6 years. And so a lot of credit needs to go to Governor Deal. But it also, and Governor Deal would be the first to admit, that it's a team sport and that it takes a lot of people. And so we've been, from Fulton County's perspective, we've been very fortunate to work with a lot of great partners. And we've been fortunate that we've had a robust economy to deal with. We continue to be the recipient of a lot of great opportunities, and there's a number of deals in the pipeline. And what I'd like to do, maybe when we get back in a few minutes, is to talk a little bit about some of these projects that we can talk about.
Mm-hmm. I think we have enough time to talk about UPS.
All right. UPS just opened 2 weeks ago out on Fulton Industrial Boulevard next to Charlie Brown Airport. It's got nothing to do with the airport. It sits on property that the airport has. That runway is not long enough to take cargo, so we don't have cargo or commercial flights in there. But It is the second largest facility UPS has in the world. It's over 1,400,000 square feet. They can process 100,000 packages an hour through that facility. And it is world class, and it is an unbelievable facility, which is really creating a halo effect with companies that want to be located near that facility. So
it might be a good place to buy a residential real estate.
Yeah, I
or
agree.
invest in
yeah,
commercial
and
real estate.
they're going to hire a lot of people, probably over 2,000 people.
Mm-hmm. So people would like to live near working and playing, and live, work, and play concepts, which will transform that whole corridor over there. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back. We're sitting here with Al Nash of Select Fulton, the economic development arm of Fulton County, and Al has 40 years of experience in contributing to the well-being of our city through the planning and development and various other organizations on boards, and certainly appreciate his service to the community, and he probably knows the city as well, if not better than anybody. And they've had, with his help, the city and the state has become extremely successful as a business entity. And you mentioned earlier in the previous segment that Governor Deal is very proud of the fact that for 6 years in a row we're the number one state for business.
Yeah, it's quite an honor, and for the second row in a year, for 2 years in a row, the Georgia Department of Economic Development has been named the best economic development state program in the country. And again, that's great, but we got great assets to work with, and we got an airport that is the most traveled airport in the world. And it's interesting, and you might experience with some of your customers. You ask them, well, what brought you here? Mm-hmm. And the airport will always come up as one of the top reasons, whether they use it on a weekly basis or they just use it as the airport with the connectivity. Mm-hmm. And we're fortunate to have Delta Airlines based here, which can take you anywhere in the world. And so that continues to be the magnet that draws. But it's the attraction of talent. It's the attraction of the higher institutions of higher learning. It's the business climate that we have been here. So what I would want to let the audience kind of know is that we are perceived in the country and even globally in some of these areas, fintech, financial technology, and that's a broad category. But you might be aware that over 80% of all credit card transactions that occur on a daily basis are processed by a company, one of the companies that's headquartered here in Atlanta or in Fulton County. And so that is a tremendous thing. I just returned from the largest fintech conference along with other representatives from the state and the metro area representing Georgia and our region and our county. And there was probably 40,000 people from around the world at this conference. And we're on the map. And so we see that area growing. The second area is really in the HIMSS, which is health information. And a little known fact is back in the 80s, a lot of that technology of record keeping and medical devices, and that really came out of Georgia Tech. And so we really have helped kind of spur that, and we're becoming a leader in that space. Logistics, as we talked in the earlier segment a little bit about UPS, they had choices, but this is where they wanted to locate that facility, and they're hoping that they can keep up with with this e-commerce demand. And what a lot of people think, oh, it's my wife buying stuff or I'm buying stuff, but it's really business to business too. Businesses are relying more on, I can get that product or that part overnight. I don't have to have a massive warehouse. I can get that part because of the delivery system. And where we're located and where we are, we're seeing that. We've seen in the last 2 years 4 or 5 big million-square-foot deals. Walmart has one of their 4 or 5 e-commerce facilities in South Fulton. There's a company called ASOS, A-S-O-S, which is the largest largest online retailer in Great Britain. Opened their first U.S. facility on South Fulton Parkway, and they have 1 million people, and they employ over 1,000 people. And so we see these opportunities, and those are all not low-paying jobs. Somebody's got to work on all this automation, and so we're seeing a lot of great opportunity. And the last area that I would really just mention to you is that the film and entertainment business. Georgia is, depending on who you talk to and so forth, is either number 2 or number 3 in productions now. And we are seeing that industry really grow. We're starting to see some post-production in the music and also the gaming business, and that's not the slot machines, it's the video games. Is starting to really, we've got a really robust program here in Georgia that's attracting a lot of that business. And Fulton County is being the recipient of that.
Technology is transforming the world, of course.
Right.
As we all know, and everybody wants to be involved in that industry, and we're really getting our share of that industry.
Oh, yeah. And I think you think about it, all these workers are not going to come out of Georgia Tech and University of Georgia. They're going to come out of a lot of schools, and we're fortunate across this country, but especially in the Southeast, to have a lot of good technology. Georgia, Clemson, Auburn's of the world, and Tennessee's, and Florida. These are, and Atlanta is sort of a mecca where a lot of these talent want to come to, and the cost of living.
Yeah, that's another plus. And the quality of our education has steadily improved.
We're seeing test scores go up throughout this county, and we're encouraged by that. And we've expanded our technical colleges, and of course, we talked earlier about the great higher institutions of higher learning that we have here in our county.
Stay tuned. Be right back after the break. Welcome back. I'm sitting here with Al Nash at the Select Fulton Economic Development Arm of Fulton County. And before the show, Al and I were talking about the south side of Atlanta. I was thinking that College Park and East Point are kind of like the gateway to this southern part of the metro area, as maybe you could say Sandy Springs and Dunwoody are the gateway to the northern part of Fulton County. And every time I turn around, there's something phenomenally good going on in the south area, Southern Crescent, as we call it. For example, there's this new 320-acre downtown development slated for College Park. Sounds extremely exciting.
Yeah, that's a great project. My hat's off to the mayor and the leadership and the staff down there at College Park. They stepped out a number of years ago and built the Georgia Convention Center down there. And a lot of people said, they tell me that their business over the last 2 years has exceeded 100% of what it was the year before. Mm. If you go down there, we're getting a lot of first-class hotels being built around. But that is the only convention center in the country that you can get from the airport terminal to the conference center. Mm-hmm. And that rail line runs over there.
Right, overhead.
Yeah, to the car rental place, but it passes by there. And so we see that. But this land that they have is across the street there, across Camp Creek, and it was land that the FAA had acquired at one time, and they gave it back to the city. And so they've got some real exciting stuff that's going on. They've started developing. They've made a couple of announcements. We're seeing also the stuff that's being done at the airport, out front of the airport, that you're going to see about new hotel and things like that. And so with Porsche going in down there with their headquarters over on up 75 at the in Hapeville there, and then of course you got Chick-fil-A, you got Delta just signed a year before last a 20-year lease down, 25-year lease. I think that's really, and then the earlier things I announced, I was discussing about some of the big high-tech distribution facilities. That is it. But what I think is really interesting, and we have a road down called South Fulton Parkway. It's about 20 miles that runs from basically 285 out to the county line. It's 4-lane for the first 13 miles. The last 10 miles or so are 2-lane, but it's room for 4 lanes. There, if you draw some imaginary line on either side of that road, there's more undeveloped land, undeveloped near a major airport than anywhere else in the world. And it's sitting there ripe. And so I really believe that the future of Fulton County is South Fulton County. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also going to play a big future of the Atlanta region as we continue to expand and attract population. And so with the leadership in those cities guiding that, I think we've got a great opportunity to really look to the future. And I can tell you there's planning being discussed and working along that corridor down through there, and the connectivity and so forth. So I'm excited about the future.
I know that that corridor starts at the airport, right, and heads southwest. Right. Ends in a pretty cool place down there that like recreation area, shooting and recreation.
Right.
Forgot the name of it offhand, but I was there years ago when they first started. Right. Magnificent.
No, it's a great opportunity, and I think probably over the next 2 or 3 years you're going to see some announcements being made down that corridor. They're going to be really exciting.
Yeah, it's a great place to invest.
Right.
If you're interested in commercial real estate investment. Foxhall, that's it. It's a magnificent place. Right. But it's what did you say? 20 miles stretch?
Yeah, it's about a 20-mile stretch.
20 miles. So. Yeah. Well, thanks for everything you do, Al. We appreciate all your service.
Well, Lou, thank you for all you do, and thanks for the opportunity to come visit with you today.
Great to have you on the show again.
All right.
Appreciate it, and we look forward to keeping in touch with you.
All right.
Thank you for listening. Have a great day.